Time by NHT is
8 o'clock.
The Health Minister, Dr. Christopher Tufton, recently held court in the House of Representatives as he made his contribution to the sectoral debate. Among the things the minister said was that for the first time in a long time, more people are turning up to health centers to seek health care rather than flooding hospitals. He says this was a significant change and does support the work by the government to improve the offerings at health centers. He also addressed the issue of the controversial Corner Regional Hospital development, and he says based on what the ministry has paid out so far, it makes a lie of the claim about the sums spent already on Corner Regional Hospital. Beyond that, he painted a picture of a health care area that is not the best. He admits that there are several improvements to make, but he says it's certainly better than where this administration found it when they started their journey in 2016. Guess what? Dr. Tufton is my guest this evening on Lead Story Prime. Health is one of the interesting portfolios, It has a minister who is, the word to describe him in many ways is equanimity. The way to describe him is that his manner is the fitting of that descriptor, even calm on everything else. The opposition spokesman on health, though, by contrast, is a pugnacious fellow. Of course, Dr. Alfred Dawes is aspiring for political office, so he has to get breakthrough. The clutter has to get himself noticed. That's what politics is about, and the combative nature with which he goes about his advocacy has certainly caught the attention of Jamaicans. The minister did not spend much time in his sectoral debate talking about the direct rivalry, if at all. What he did instead spend his time on was going through the various areas of the portfolio. Wellness, of course, is tacked on, and how the administration, in his view, has moved the needle forward in terms of creating better facilities for persons to look after their health and their well-being. And just in case you missed the presentation and you haven't been paying attention to the big talking points in health, we prepared this piece for you to ease us into the discussion.
In recent weeks, Jamaica's healthcare sector has faced intense political scrutiny as a series of high-profile controversies raise questions about accountability, infrastructure, and transparency in the Ministry of Health. At the center of the firestorm is the Southern Regional Health Authority's purchase of a neurosurgical drill for Bustamante Hospital for Children, reportedly costing taxpayers $31.5 million Jamaican dollars. Opposition spokesman on health, Dr. Alfred Dawes, has blasted the procurement as an egregious misuse of public funds, pointing out that similar equipment can be acquired for a fraction of the cost. Sarah has defended the purchase, citing proper procurement procedures and the inclusion of a 2-year maintenance package. However, Dr. Dawes has formally called on the Auditor General's Department and the Integrity Commission to investigate the matter. The vendor, Meditech, and MP Donovan Williams have taken legal action against Dawes for defamation. Still, the controversy ignited discussions, with many Jamaicans questioning the oversight and transparency of how medical equipment is sourced and priced. In Western Jamaica, frustrations continue to mount over the Cornwall Regional Hospital renovation project, now entering its 8th year. Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton has insisted the project is moving forward, but critics argue it is emblematic of deeper inefficiencies plaguing the sector. In his recent presentations, the minister sought to clear the air as the opposition PNP claims that the project's price tag has ballooned to $24 billion. However, Minister Tufton says only $9.4 billion has been spent on the project to date. These developments are the latest in a series of challenges faced by Jamaica's health sector, from procurement scandals to troubled hospitals. For critics, The recurring theme is a lack of oversight, transparency, and urgency in resolving issues. We discuss on Lead Story Prime. Angela Melville for Lead Story Prime.
Thank you, Angela. All right, so the Minister is here with me in studio. Good evening, Minister.
Good evening.
Christophe, the Minister of Health and Wellness and a Member of Parliament for West Central, St. Catherine, a constituency previously represented in the House by another esteemed, well, by an esteemed doctor of a different kind, Dr. Ken Ball.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Let's talk about the portfolio. And let me start the conversation this way. And we have time, so there's time for explanations. What, and I know that health and wellness, it clearly can't be a one-man shop. There's a huge team there supporting the work that you do, and along with the permanent secretary. But what would you say you have done in the time you've been in place at the portfolio in this electoral cycle to advance the cause for the JLP's third consecutive term?
So you're asking me a political question.
I'm asking you to say what you have done to allow Jamaicans to say, well,
you're
third
right.
term is
First of all, it's a team effort, and we have 23,000 workers in public health, approximately. And of course, from a policy perspective, the cabinet, led by the Honourable Prime Minister, drives that process. The health is a very emotive portfolio.
You said that in your presentation.
Yes, it doesn't take a lot for people to be charged up, and for detractors who understand that, they play on that. So, but it I think camouflages a lot of what has been done. So in answer to your question, I would say that the Jamaica Labour Party over the last 9 years has led and provided leadership to this country when faced with significant national crisis around public health. We inherited the tail end of ZICV, which actually resulted in the change of a health minister. Fenton was literally dismissed and another came in. So they weren't doing too well with that. We then had to face ZICV first,
and then Zika.
Then Zika or ZICV. 1 year of a dengue outbreak, the dreaded COVID-19 for 2 plus nearly 3 years. And when you look at, by all accounts, the country did well to confront and to manage. COVID, of course, being the big elephant in the room. And I think the government must be credited for that, because it took a lot. We didn't panic, we managed, and we got the country to comply with most of what was required. And our death per capita, when compared with other countries, including developed countries, is better than many others. So if that were used as a measurement of success, we'd have done well. Beyond that, we had to confront Cornwall, and I saw the piece, interesting piece, by the way. I don't think the drill issue is a scandal by any stretch of the imagination, but that's an opinion. Cornwall was a crisis because you have a situation where a hospital, 52 years old at the time, not maintained well, with 450 souls in beds, and we're told to shut it down. So we inherited a challenge that was just waiting to get to a stage of collapse. And we had to manage that process by building a hospital around the hospital, relocating hundreds of people, a lot of dislocation. And the truth is, even though we are yet to open the new Cornwall, we have been able to provide services to the people of Western Jamaica in a significant way, very significant way, both outpatient and inpatient. And I think managing that process is underestimated by many, but the people who have benefited from Cornwall services would appreciate what has been done.
You're a man from rural Jamaica.
That's only part. There are other things.
Yeah, and we have time, so we'll hit those things. But you're a rural lad.
Manchester.
There you go.
Yes.
Good. Manchester High School. Very good institution. So you would understand the expression, cut a rod for your own back. The country people would say, they say, boy, go and break the switch and bring it come to administer the punishment to you. So I use cut the rod for your own back to ask if in the initial stages of the scoping of the works to be done at Cornwall, if the communication was bad, because the public would have had the impression in the very nascent stages of the works that we're only fixing the AC?
Well, that's exactly what it started out as, that we were only fixing the AC, because the challenge as diagnosed at the time, and I don't diagnose these issues, there are technical people who do it, was that the ventilation system was the source of the contaminants, of the poor air quality. And therefore, that ventilation system was actually purchased and had to be stored up for many years. So we made an attempt at addressing the problem. Only, however, once you start pulling out that ventilation system to realize that the electrics were corroded, the piping was leaky, the roof was leaking, and I could go on and on and on. And so I think with good wisdom, we took a decision, having looked at what needed to be done, to rescope the project and to say, let us just strip the building down. And by the way, we had engineers who actually looked at the building and concluded that it was still solid and it would make more sense to strip it down and then literally rebuild in terms of the institution. And that's exactly what we did. And that is what resulted in the rescoping. And that included experts from overseas. So we brought in experts from overseas to give us that information.
So why does it appear, though, as if the messaging about AC being fixed, and look how long the AC being fixed and the hospital can't finish, that message more powerful than what you say is the real story, that it was scoped, had to be rescoped, and the scale of works far more significant than intended?
Because I think what, if you were to apply context to health and health services provision prior to 2016 when we took office, the reality is that it was a broken system. Cornwall wasn't the only challenge. All of the hospitals had challenges. The health center had challenges, which is why I say the crisis that the opposition speaks about, they created a lot of it, or certainly were complacent in addressing it during their time. And so they can't step away and pretend as if it's this government that caused all of this. In fact, one of the big achievements of this government is that we have done more to fix the problem than any other government before independence.
And that's what we want to pick up after this break. This is Lead Story Prime here on CVM TV. We have the Health and Wellness Minister in the house, and he's talking about the important advancements that have been made where the provision of health services to Jamaica is concerned, and how this administration has gone about that arduous task. More after this.
Power in great moments. If you have financial needs, Chris and Charles will fix them for you. Power in great moments since 1992. Oh, we have it all. Power in great moments. Relax, you got Chris and Charles. Oh, we have it all. When you think alone, think Chris and Charles.
The gateway for Jamaica's athletes to several international competitions, including the World Athletics Championships in Tokyo, Japan, opens from Thursday, June 26 to Sunday, June 29 for the J3A Junior and Senior National Championships at the National Stadium, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. each day. Admission, finish area season ticket, $8,000. Daily, $1,000 to $3,000. Regular grandstand season ticket, $6,500. Daily, $1,000 to $2,500. Tickets go on sale at MysticOnlineTix.com. Starting June 11, Pegasus Hotel and the Stadium Ticket Office. Starting Monday, June 23. The action will be sizzling.
In a world where innovation meets tradition, agriculture is evolving like never before. From the latest sustainable farming technologies to age-old practices passed down through generation, agriculture is
precious to me.
I love the animals. I don't mind getting my hands dirty. I love working.
Join us right here on CVM TV every Sunday during news at 7 as we explore the people, the science, and the breakthroughs that are shaping the way we grow, eat, and live. You don't want to miss it. This is Farming Forward.
Back with us on Lead Story Prime, my guest is the Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Chris Tufton. He's the Member of Parliament for West Central St. Catherine, and like all MPs, he's gearing up for a big event that is set to happen by September 30. Dr. Tufton, you said before the break that effectively you have been criticized by the opposition for doing work, leading a team to repair things that were subject to decades of neglect, and rather than acknowledge that you had your work cut out for you and you're going about it the right way, it's been criticism on top of criticism. I wanted in all of that to tell the public though how it is that the health ministry has managed to convince Jamaicans to go to a health center rather than a hospital for care. Still over 1 million people going to the hospitals, but more than that number going to health centers. In my experience, people are loath to go to a health center because the perception is that the quality of care and the accessibility of a doctor are inferior to a hospital. How have you and your team managed to do that based on the numbers you gave in the sectoral presentation?
Right. So first of all, it's really 1 million plus visits, not
people. Right? There you go. Yes.
So yes, we have seen a shift of nearly 300,000 more visits to health centers, 250,000 less to hospitals. And it is a policy success because you really want people to stay in their communities and to benefit from health services, more prevention services, some curative services at the local level. We have 325 health centers across the country. How have we done so? We've done a number of things. First of all, I tabled last year a primary healthcare reform policy document, which has reclassified our health centers in stages that would allow certain types of services depending on the population and the profile of that population at the community level. So in simple terms, what it means, more services, more doctors, and under the upgrades, a better quality facility. The latest program we have is Operation Refresh. Basically what it does, it looks at a health center, and I've visited most, if not all, in my time. It ensures that it has air conditioning for waiting, chairs, bathrooms that are clean, water that is running, toilets that can flush. It ensures that the staff has a kitchenette where they can have their lunch, a microwave, a refrigerator. It ensures that the doctors have proper cubicles and that it has the basic equipment to do the work. So if you go to Malvern Health Center in St. Elizabeth, southern St. Elizabeth, I mean, the people, based on what they were accustomed to and what they have now, I mean, one person described it as a North Coast hotel.
5-star.
Yeah, a 5-star hotel. So the idea there is to blend back credibility to the primary healthcare institutions. But importantly also, while doing that, adding more services. So persons now don't bypass the health center. They stop there first. And a lot of their challenges can be addressed there, and so prevent them from going to the hospital, whereas you have said. So I think that's one of the big successes of the government. I'm very proud of it, the team that we work with to have done this. I think it has to continue because we have done, you're the opposition saying that they're going to spend more time on health centers and we need to stop doing big projects. The truth is you need both because the hospitals need upgrading. But we have spent over the last 5 years, not even the 9, 5, nearly $4 billion on 138 health centers of the 325 to do what I've just said, upgrade, improve, including adding more doctors and so on. And no other government has done that, I believe, in any period of time, any similar 5-year period. And that's why I say that we are better off today, even though we're not where we want to be.
Where the health centers are concerned, let me give you an example. The one on Red Hills Road, near the KFC.
Yes.
I used to ask myself, so, I mean, there'll be mornings you'll be coming down, and the traffic would hold you on Red Hills Road, and I say, the health center, because the crowd would be so much. So I said to myself, what is the crowd indicative of? Is it that the operations are inefficient, causing a logjam of patients? Or is it that the services are so good that people are flooding the facility trying to access healthcare? You tell me where should I settle?
It's a couple of reasons. First of all, in the mornings, there's a subculture where people feel that they must go very early.
Like the passport office at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Exactly. and they complain, right? I love them dearly, but they complain that, open the gate on time, but the worker is not going to get there at 6 or 5:30. And no matter what you explain, I say, listen, if you have an appointment, come at the time. People feel that if they come early, they're going to get the front of the line, and I could go on and on. And so we have a real challenge in convincing many Jamaicans, not to turn up 2 hours before opening hours. And so invariably it causes a kind of challenge with that. Secondly, though, the services that are offered, particularly if you offer pharmacy services, and the NHF has been expanded.
Yes.
It's another big success of this government. 3 million prescriptions written last year. In 2015, less than 1 million. We have had 5 or 6 more categories of illnesses, including 3 additional categories of cancer: multiple myeloma, colorectal cancer, and
lung cancer.
And lung cancer, exactly. Those never existed before. So what NHF has done during our tenure is not just establish more pharmacy outlets, but they have also forged alliances with private pharmacies where they have a drug serve window. And a health center with a pharmacy and doctors is a big thing for
more
patients.
attractive prospect.
Absolutely, because it becomes a one-stop shop.
Everything is
you get
the
everything.
same place.
Exactly. So we've seen a lot of that, and that may contribute to your situation that you've just mentioned.
So that 325 health centers that you have island-wide,
Right.
What is the sweet spot number? I mean, because I'm certain the opposition have said there's need for more, and there are many people who believe that there is indeed a need for more, like myself. What number do you think would be adequate to support the number of hospitals you have to make the health offerings comprehensive?
So the original establishment of primary healthcare facilities, which is based on the British system, is to have a health center within 10 miles of where people live. The truth is, over time, we've tried to maintain that kind of geographic spread or ratio, but Jamaicans live everywhere at all. And Jamaicans
big pockets of people all over. Yeah.
And Jamaicans choose some of the most unusual places. You go through some hill and some little path, and so I don't think you have that kind of ratio because of that kind of spread. What I think is more needed, to be frank, is not so much new health centers, although there are areas where we need new health centers. I think what we need is a whole overhauling of expanded health centers in particular areas. So we're doing that. So for example, if you go to Olaba now, Olaba has exploded with housing, right? We're now building a comprehensive health center in Olaba, which is now under construction under the Health System Strengthening Program, which is going to be like a mini hospital. It will have lab services, diagnostic services, doctors, nurses, pharmacists. It will have an emergency care, urgent care facility, so opening hours and so on. And that is a direct response to the massive build-out in that area. Of course, we have some lands also in the Bernard Lodge area, which is zoned for a new hospital. So it's an evolution. But I can say again that this government is more sensitive to what is the reality than any other before. And you see signs of that. And this weekend, I should say, Friday, I'm going to St. Ann, where we're breaking ground, signing a contract for a large health center in Ocho Rios, another one in Discovery Bay. Between the two, I think it's about 600 million apiece. In the past, you never thought of health centers costing 600 million. These are a leap years away from what used to be, and they come with equipment and so on, and that's a good thing.
Yes, notwithstanding the expansion in the services offered by health centers, the improved physical facilities that confront people at clinic, and as a little boy, I can just remember the dread that used to accompany the statement that, boy, may I go to a clinic? We hear people say, so it was a whole day ordeal, you might not get through, and the quality of service, well, quality of service is good, but you may not be satisfied because of the overall experience. So I say that to say this. As a talk show host, I'm exposed, Minister, to people calling and being very non-complimentary about their interface with the health system that you preside over. and let me give you the example. That point you made about the waiting time and people coming early. So the place will be 8 o'clock. So if you're there from 4 o'clock, it's an additional 4 hours that you're going to have to wait. So you add that on to your wait time and somebody there from morning when really and true. But notwithstanding that, people who go on time will tell you that. Call and say, Mr. George, me there, a UER, me there, KPH, me there, so and so and so from morning, and them come and them don't look for me, and other people come after, and them get through. The whole issue of triage and the communication to people, so to say that, listen, if you go A&E or if you go to the hospital, not because you don't feel good, and you believe so you were here first, somebody come after and them get through, what kind of thing that a friend thing, because, you know, Brown, you know the various reasons that we go through. So I'm saying, your ministry is big on public relations and trying to shape the public's expectation of interaction with these services. I think there's urgent need for work in that regard.
Absolutely. So I have never ever said that the system was perfect. And I've always said it's a work in progress. And I actually did my sectorial and spent the first 5 or 7 minutes just explaining that we have to try harder. And the team has to try harder. And there are some that let down the side. I mean, it's a big portfolio. So the issue of weight is a combination of, in some instances, not understanding how the process works, which is where the communication is important. But there's genuine need for improvement in the customer interface between the frontline people and the patient. And, you know, a patient going to a health center or a hospital, as the case may be, is a particular type of client. They are in distress.
Yes.
That's why they go.
Yes.
It's not a supermarket or a hotel.
Yes.
And so their mannerisms, their temperament is understandably fatigued and so on. And the system has to be trained to deal with that. When the system comes under stress, because some of these workers, the workers in the health system work for long hours also, you have a kind of, it's a difficult situation to manage. And I understand all of that. So some of the things that we have been doing is trying to train more. So we have done a lot of training under our compassionate care program. We have allowed for greater avenues for persons to express themselves. You say you have a radio program, I have one too, every Friday between 10:30 and 11 on RJR.
Yes.
And people call me, right? I get 15 calls in a little half an hour segment. And I do it deliberately, I don't have to do it. But I do it because I want to provide a forum for people to call in. And they do call, and we make note and we follow up. But there's also a toll-free number in the waiting areas where people can call. So we've tried to review and reform the system of complaints and feedback. In fact, we have restructured the ministry to allow for some sort of mystery intervention to see what's going on without being identified, so we can correct some of those issues. But there's also the understanding issue, which is triage, as you have said. People think that it's a first come, first serve, and it's not.
Like everything else.
Like everything else. You go to a hospital and you wait, and you think that you are long enough and you should get through. A man comes in with a gunshot wound or a heart attack. They're going to push you aside if they don't think you need it. So one of the things I announced in the sectoral is, how do we triage that 30% of persons who come to A&E who really don't need A&E?
Yes.
They think they do.
Yes.
The head hurt them, they think they're dying.
Yes.
And we triage them into another facility, which is why we're extending the opening hours of health centers that are close to these hospitals up to 10 p.m. and providing more services so we can move them into those facilities. We're doing it now. We go up to about 8, 9. I think there are 1 or 2 at 10. We want to standardize that, and then hopefully behind that to provide some sort of communication.
Health and wellness must be the most difficult thing to provide customer service in, because as the minister said, happy people don't go to hospitals and health centers. It's a miserable existence as a potential patient or a patient. And when you go, you expect to be served promptly so that your suffering can ease, it's a difficult thing. More on Lead Story Prime after this.
every day starts with care. Care that's always close. Supermed family of pharmacies is where you go for everything you need. From your morning routine to life's biggest moments. Supermed family of pharmacies is always by your side. Whether it's prescriptions or household essentials, trust the care that's close to home. Super happy, super healthy, Supermed.
Open a deposit account in the JN Bank Savings Streams promotion and save monthly for a chance to win an all-expenses-paid trip to Peru. Enter now. The time by JN Bank Savings Streams promotion is
8:30. The following is brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
We have, as a people, been fed a steady diet of information, oftentimes untrue, that nothing nah go on. This is probably the first government that almost every single day of the week could have a groundbreaking, a handing over, a contract signing, a commissioning, because enough things are going on in Jamaica under the Andrew Holness-led government. Enough things. So when they come to you with the negativity about nothing going, you may not see what is happening. So when you see groundbreaking, we have been working 2 years, 3 years before bringing it through a process, and we have all kinds of projects, not in a pipeline. Our projects are on a track, so we have a train line of projects to come.
The proceeding was brought to you by the Office of the Prime Minister.
In countries big and small, the issue of healthcare is very, very significant. I remember very well, a man I interviewed right here on this set here at CVM TV, the former leader of the Labour Party in Britain, Jeremy Corbyn, who was the opposition leader from 2015 to 2020. And as I've said before here, I'm a huge fan of PMQs in Britain. I watch it every Wednesday when Parliament is in session. And for 5 years between 2015 and 2020, every Wednesday that Jeremy Corbyn went to PMQs, whether it was Boris Johnson or David Cameron, who was the Prime Minister, he would raise issues about the NHS. You could put your pot on fire that the NHS would come, something to do with the delivery of healthcare, people waiting, not enough doctors, all of those things throughout the UK. A huge issue then and still a huge issue now as the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, tries to fix decades of neglect in the UK, the British health system. Minister, the issue of beds. Mm-hmm. You say you have, your radio program puts you in direct contact with ordinary Jamaicans who use the health system, so I'm sure you get the complaints. People are saying, how does the minister expect me to believe that he's working for us and he has done well since 2016 when the administration first took office, February 25, when it is that I can't get no bed when I go hospital. My mother couldn't get any bed. People still have to be sleeping on chairs. I'll tell you this. When I came into journalism in 2005, the first assignment I ever did as a reporter was at the UHWI. A woman called to say her mother had been sleeping on a chair for 3 days, couldn't get a bed. That was 2005. Mm-hmm. And come forward 20 years, the issue of inadequate number of beds, still an issue. What's happening there?
So to understand the issue with beds, you have to appreciate, yes, the underinvestment over many years. And this government, by the way, has added nearly 400 beds since we have been in office, with another 400 or so that is now in progress, from Western Child, from Spanish Town expansion, from Mapen to Sedans Bay, Chapelton, which was closed, and so on. So we have added beds, and we're adding more. But the reality is that it really also has to do with the demand and the somewhat unpredictable nature of the demand, but also, to some extent, the predictability of health profile getting worse, more premature mortality, early onset of illness. We did a program called Dying Young, where we looked at people who are getting ill earlier. Mm-hmm. Trauma is a huge issue. The bike accidents, people riding without helmets, and so on. So when you have a society that has these kinds of features, high trauma, high incidence of NCDs, which is growing, and then of course you have the waves, like the flu season and so on. It's hard to plan with absolute certainty. So what you do, you plan to adjust as you go along with a system of referrals, moving people from one place to the next. So you have some capacity, but that capacity requires you to move people around. Now, the logistics of that can also be a challenge because sometimes you may have the bed but not have the personnel to man the beds. And there's another big challenge that we have, huge challenge, which is the HR challenge in public health, where between migration and issues around clinical rotation, space and faculty, we can only train a certain number. And we lose most of the specialized ones, nurses in particular, but doctors too, to the larger markets. It's not an excuse. It really is a complex challenge. I think once we add some additional capacity that we're working on, in addition to what we've added already, it will ease the issue a bit. But it's a process that has to just continue to turn. It can't stop.
And I can hear someone saying, well, clearly the minister understands the issue. You know, the minister understands every aspect of his portfolio. However, why is it that with this understanding of the issue, it doesn't translate into me turning up and being in the condition to be admitted to hospital that a bed is provided? Because I can tell you this, most people tell you that, listen, regardless of what is happening in health, nothing now go on because when my mother was sick and she went there, we couldn't get a bed for 4 days.
Well, can I tell you, while I agree and empathize with those who say that from experience, more people can say that they have access than they don't. I mean, we have about 190,000 inpatient persons who spend 5 days or less in a hospital in an average year. And, you know, most who turn up actually get served. There is a 10% or so, 5 to 10% that are social cases, and they occupy beds when they really ought not to. And that creates another set of challenges, particularly in the urban centers. But those who don't have access immediately are actually in a minority. But I fully appreciate and understand that if you can't get it, you just can't get it, and it's your personal experience. So the other challenge too is just the build out of adding more.
Yes.
Because adding a bed is not in and of itself the solution. Adding a bed also has to be accompanied by a range of other things around that.
Yes.
As I said, the personnel being a key one.
Yes.
And so when you plan and you restructure, you kind of have to do it doing several things at the same time. Now, if I were to identify one of the weaknesses in the period of my own stewardship, and it's not so much about me or the government, it's the frustrations around how quickly you can get things done. Because believe me, if we could wave a magic wand and build a new hospital, this government would probably build 2 already, large ones too. We have a program called Health System Strengthening, which gives us IDB funding, EU funding, and GOJ funding. That's the one we're building out Spanish Town and a couple of the others. And I went to Washington 6 months after I became minister. And we broke ground. I mean, COVID was an interrupter. So take out the 3 years of COVID. We broke ground after the COVID years. And it went through several layers of procurement, starts and stops. Yes, COVID was an issue. So it was, this may have been an outlier period, but it still takes too long to get things done. So I don't think it's an unwillingness on the part of the government. I think we have demonstrated that we can and have done a lot. But as I say, there's more to be done, which is why I say, let's stay the course and get it done.
Hear you on that. Again, people, when it comes to health, are not going to be, and you said it, that is very emotive issues, and you're going to speak from your own experience.
Right.
Yes? People will say, look, looking at healthcare and seeing 2 high-profile cases in 2023-2024 of 2 burn victims having to go outside of the country for assistance. They're saying, well, for how many billions we've spent on healthcare in this country, how is it that we can't offer that primary care to burn victims here? And when they read your sectoral presentation, Minister, and realize that among the professionals that you are short of, burn, 0. Why is it that we are floundering, is a good way to describe it, where burn victim treatment is concerned? So
first of all, we treat burn victims every day in our hospital system. So it's the degree of the burns. No, it's an important distinction because sometimes we argue around not having a burn unit, which is actually not so because we can treat burns, KPH, the big hospitals. But when it gets to a particular point, it requires certain types of specialized equipment and specialized personnel. And that's where you have a challenge. I know you is trying to establish a more advanced one now, working with, I think, with Petrojam.
Yes.
But the personnel, it's difficult to find the people. People are just not available. And if they are, they have much better offers outside of Jamaica. So what we do normally, when we have these circumstances, we provide some support for persons to be flown out of the country once we stabilize them. By the way, that's not unique to Jamaica or to small countries like Jamaica or in the Caribbean. And it's not unique even to larger countries where people may have to move from one state to the next to get a particular type of care. If you look at the trajectory of illnesses, it's not going to be possible to provide all the specialized services.
For sure.
And that's how health operates. It's a hub and spoke. People refer people from one institution to the next. That's why you have a type A, type B, type C. Sometimes people complain because they think they are at X hospital and they should get all the services, and it just doesn't work like that. But we will have to explain that, and we have to provide an opportunity for all concerns to be addressed, which is why we have the Compassionate Grant, which is why we provide support for cancer treatment. All of that tries to capture everything, including birth.
I want to make sure I'm getting it right. I'm trying to picture the table that you presented in my head. And I'm trying to recall if oncology was one of the areas where you didn't have the doctors you need.
Cancer care.
Nephrology.
Nephrology, right? Renal. So, yeah, that's the nurses, the specialized nurses.
Right. So I say that to ask, is it that as soon as we train people in these areas, they go, or are the nurses who are in training not in these areas?
It's a combination of things. So it specialized, there are about 8 categories of specialized nurses that are very scarce. And as you train them, they exercise the option more often than not to migrate.
And bonding arrangements don't work?
No. I mean, the recruiters pay off the bonds easily. So if you notice, we have offered the Barwin Scholarship recently.
A significant one.
And it's very significant. 600, 500 high number of persons who have gotten. This year we're going again with 500 million. And the idea is to bond people. Now, we hope it will work. I mean, we've had these arrangements before, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Yes.
But it's part of the kind of wide array of offerings that we have to place to address the HR issue. I went to India and the Philippines recently, and we're now in dialogue with them, further dialogue. We've signed MOUs, and that is to try and get those countries to partner with us on training and joint certification and clinical rotation, where their personnel can come work for a period, go back, just as we do with the Cubans.
Right.
And ours too can go and get experience in those countries. My own view is that the future requires us to see health in a much broader context. We can't just settle for the one-way migration. We're going to have to look at movement both ways. It's a difficult conversation to have because the minute you talk about bringing in people, you start to hear people screaming that you're taking away their jobs and so on. Well, the truth is, health services are not going to be able to expand to where you want them if you do not look at the wider picture and exercise all those options. The other interesting fact is that some personnel don't want to go into work in some parts of the country. I mean, we have regular clinicians, meaning generalist doctors, who post in Portland or SAV. And if they don't come from that area, they would prefer to stay in the urban spaces. So sometimes they come to me and say they don't have a job and they want a job and say, okay, are you willing to go down to Portland or go down to... And you get a negative. And, you know, it's unfortunate because those are lovely parishes, but maybe unfamiliarity. What we're trying to do now is to provide things like housing, to incentivize people to go into those areas. So sometimes you actually have the people, they don't want to be placed outside of their comfort zone. And then other times you just don't have them.
Hear you on that. Take a break. Back with more. Final segment after this.
of people are attacked by harmful mouth bacteria. The root cause of bad breath, gum problems, cavities, plaque, and tartar. That's why Colgate combined the best science and technology in Colgate Total. Unlike others, its superior formula fights bacteria and creates a powerful protective barrier for up to 24 hours to prevent them from coming back. Take control of your oral health with Colgate Total.
Protecting Jamaica's borders is a key priority for the Jamaica Customs Agency. The JCA will remain vigilant and resolute in effectively fulfilling this mandate. The time brought to you by the Jamaica Customs Agency is
8:45.
The gateway for Jamaica's athletes to several international competitions, including the World Athletics Championships in Tokyo, Japan, opens from Thursday, June 26 to Sunday, June 29 for the J3A Junior and Senior National Championships at the National Stadium, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. each day. Admission, finish area season ticket, $8,000. Daily, $1,000 to $3,000. Regular grandstand season ticket, $6,500. Daily, $1,000 to $2,500. Tickets go on sale at MysticOnlineTix.com. Starting June 11, Pegasus Hotel and the Stadium Ticket Office. Starting Monday, June 23. The action will be sizzling.
Back with us on Lead Storying. They were in the dying embers of the show. You know, I'm a horse racing man, so we've turned for home and we're actually at the furlong pole, galloping strongly to the finish. The Minister of Health and Wellness, Dr. Chris Tufton, is my guest. Dr. Tufton, just back to CRH for a little bit. You said something in the Parliament concerning the amounts that the government has already spent on CRH. And you told Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, I don't remember who was in the chair, that this figure that you're telling the Parliament now is significantly less than the number quoted by the opposition, who've issued a statement under the hand of 5 of their caretakers in Western Jamaica to say that 24 million has already been spent. Billion with a B. 24 billion has already been spent. You're saying not so.
Absolutely not so. And they know that. They know that. But it's clearly, and as I said, an emotive issue, and it's an attempt at gaining some political mileage, but it is inaccurate. And frankly speaking, it's reckless, extremely reckless, because for the average citizen, when they hear that number, they think, okay, well, this hospital should be well completed long ago. The fact is we have been going through a process. There are some projections, which I've spoken about in the Parliament, at Standing Finance and otherwise. But to date, and it's a moving target, we've spent less than 10 billion, 9.4, I think is what I said in the sectoral. And I broke it out in terms of how it is spent. You know, the Auditor General is there. That's her right to go in. I have no issues at all with that. I believe that we have legitimately approached the problem where we had to do a number of things to preserve the services. And she will do her thing. And if there are issues at that point, then we need to examine them. I mean, I'm not afraid of scrutiny. I think it's important that it's a healthy part of the process. Where I have a major difficulty is when things are fabricated to gain political ground or mileage or to score some sort of points. And the opposition has been extremely reckless in quoting this number when they know that you can't criticize people about money not yet spent. Probably 15 billion of that is either at Ministry of Finance or BOJ or somewhere. But how can you be criticizing accountability around that when it's not yet spent? Focus on the 9 billion. So, and that would be fair game.
Yes. So you're saying it's 9.9 billion that...
9.4, I think is what I said.
You're not talking earmarks or plans to spend. You're talking paid out already. 9.4 billion.
That's the report I have. 9.4 billion that has been spent to date.
Hear you on that. The issue of this drill. This drill that the opposition has, I mean, there have been statements from 4 spokespersons. There's been a press conference, and there's been a lot of chatter around the fact that you paid way over the odds for a drill for the Bustamante Hospital for Children.
But first of all, not me, but the process. Very important.
They say it's you. They don't say the process. They say the minister.
That's the other kind of recklessness that we talk about. You know, there have been a lot of dramatics. I mean, the opposition spokesperson on health, someone I know, he used to work in public health, so he understands the system.
Which is why what he says, many people listen keenly and take it as credible because he used to work in the system.
Which is why it is so reckless of him, because he understands process, or should He's not demonstrating that understanding. He seems to have changed dramatically, given that he's now a politician, which there's always a temptation to be extreme in these issues. The reality is that when the issue came to light, meaning became a matter of public discourse, I inquired of the regional health authority, who has the jurisdictional responsibility over this particular issue, that's Sarah.
Yes.
What is the situation? Did it go through the process? The report I have is that it went through the process. It was determined by experts to what was needed. And by the way, it's not a drill. It's a drill with several parts and a drill.
So it's better to say a drill system.
It's a system, exactly. And a drill that of the 2,500 surgeries on average that Buster does each year, I am told by the surgeons, probably half of those surgeries will use that device and its extension. So it could therefore account for 1,200 surgeries for the year. And these are life-saving surgeries. Not to mention when they tell you where they're coming from or where they're going.
And it's not a technocrat who told you that. It's a surgeon.
Two surgeons. Two neurosurgeons. One from KPH, one actually at Buster. And they were a part of the evaluation of determining what was needed. So it went through the process, was advertised. The companies that bid for the contract are companies that have to be registered. You know, one person interrogated me, asking me, why is it that I didn't go and research for this drill? And if I found it cheaper somewhere else, recommend that source. The system don't work like that. The system, first of all, I wouldn't know that they need a drill. I've never been involved in that process. But the truth is, if you need it, it's advertised, having determined what you need. People bid. And in terms of pricing is normally the tender process addressed for pricing, because if you go low or too low and miss what you're thrown out, as I understand one was, and if you go too high, somebody else is going to beat you. So the process of competitive tendering is really what should address where prices eventually win. And that process was followed. Now, the opposition has made several claims. They started to make claims about the different prices that you could get a drill for. I've heard from 250,000 Jamaican dollars to $5 million to 7 million. Clearly, they're groping in the dark. Clearly, they're trying to adjust as they go along, and with one intention, which is to scare people, to alarm people with the dramatics. It's very unfortunate, because that's not leadership. And as I said in my sectorial, we're not a Google government. We can't go on Google and verify what neurosurgeons need. That's a high science, and they have to determine what they need, and the system should determine that. Now, if there is need for an investigation, you have the Integrity Commission, you have the Auditor General. Those are institutions that can work, and let them work. I have no issues with that, because if there is a problem, let the chips fall where they may. But to run around and, kind of drama queen type of activity to stir up people's emotions and so on, maybe understandable in the context of an election cycle, but I don't think it adds a lot to the leadership that is required in a very sensitive industry. The people at Buster, the neurosurgeons, are very pleased with the purchase, very happy that they have it, and they will save many lives. For me, once the process was followed and there's a satisfied client and benefits to the people, that's what matters to me. And I as a result, just ignore it beyond that.
Very well. We're coming up to a very important point, as we said at the top. You're in West Central St. Catherine, and I don't get from what has been happening on the political hustings to this point that you are one of those being targeted seriously by the opposition as they look to marshal the number of seats to reach the magic number, which of course is 32.
Right.
But notwithstanding that, are you comfortable? Are you confident that you can do your own little part to help the JLP hold on to government?
Oh, well, first of all, I don't take anything for granted. So as far as West Central St. Catherine is concerned, I will work hard to maintain the confidence that the people have in me. And I'm very comfortable that we're doing the work on the ground. But I don't take them for granted or take anybody's approach for granted. As it relates to the country, of course, I'm going to do my utmost best to support the re-election of the Jamaica Labour Party. And why? Because firstly, I think we deserve a third term. And I say so with absolute humility. I don't think it's an entitlement. But I think based on the track record and the work that we have done, I remember how we came in. We came in looking at several crises, the financial issues that were still a work in progress, which had to be stabilized. We did that and did that very well. We had to face the health crises of COVID, which we overcame. We had to ensure that we created hope for a lot of people in terms of jobs. We built a lot of infrastructure and still building out, including health infrastructure, but roads and so on. And generally speaking, confidence in the country and the future is positive. Now, how governments work, it is never a done deal. It is never perfect. So we have to recognize that people are still dissatisfied for one reason or the other. What is important is that we are making progress and that we are sensitive to those who may feel deprived in one way, shape, or form, whether it's low-income housing, even though we're doing a lot there, or otherwise. And the programs continue to evolve to address those issues. So take roads, for example. It is a fact that many people are not satisfied with the quality of roads in their communities. Spark was created to address that. Not just address putting more roads in, but also ensuring that the roads that we put in will last, because Spark has a particular type of technical criteria. So water pipes, for example, go in with the roads, so that assessment is done. To me, that is very progressive, and that is going to augur well to the people. And so I think we have a platform on which we to campaign and to ask for the third term, to ask for re-election, and I certainly will be a big part of that and will certainly play my role.
Many Jamaicans, though, Minister, can't forget what happened to you in 2011 in Southwest St. Elizabeth.
Yes.
And they're saying high-profile minister then, and shocked to hear that Christopher Tufton not among the chosen few for the next electoral cycle. You have no such fears this time, do you?
Well, look at it this way. You live and you learn. And those are good lessons to learn. Yes. I think I've learned enough to understand what I must do and what I must avoid. Yes. And so I think I'll be fine.
You'll be fine.
I'll be fine.
And you think Holness and the rest of the team will be fine?
We're certainly going to work for it, and I think we will be ultimately, because I think the Jamaican people deep down recognize what's in their best interests, and we certainly are confident that our leadership, the leadership of the Prime Minister Holness and the team will act in the best interest of the Jamaican people.
Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you. All the best.
Dr. Chris Tufton, Minister of Health and Wellness and the Member of Parliament for West Central St. Catherine. That was Lead Story Prime, making way for Fan Central after these.
From politics to global events, from social issues to breaking news, Lead Story Prime dives deeper, cuts through the noise, and uncovers the stories that shape your world. Join us every Tuesday at 8 p.m. for Lead Story Prime with me, George Davis, for an hour of incisive analysis, expert interviews, and unparalleled coverage of the issues you care about. Lead Story Prime, your front row seat to the most compelling discussions. Lead Story Prime, where the truth comes first. Only on CVM TV.
Hey everybody, I'm Yendi, and this is Odyssey with Yendi. In this space, we connect with some of your favorite people as they share their journeys. Here we have some unfiltered conversations as we deep dive into their inspirations, motivations, and experiences to inspire our own life journey.
Odyssey with Yendi, brought to you by Grace and Singer.
The future